Hi friends, Dirk here. Today we're looking at a Brightin Star 60mm f2.8 Mark II 2x macro lens. What a long name, right? Yes, there was a Mark I a couple of years ago. It was the same lens as the Pergear 60mm f2.8 2x macro. And now we'll see if this is an improved version. This lens is available for 6 different camera mounts. For Canon R, Canon M, Sony E, Nikon Z, Fuji X, and also for micro four thirds cameras. So I want to find out how it performs. Of course, we want to take a look at the build quality, sharpness, bokeh, and I also would like to know if we can use it only for macro or if we could use it also for something else. Because attached to an Aps-C camera, this is the equivalent of 90mm, and attached to a micro four thirds, 120mm, that could produce beautiful portrait images. So I want to test for that as well. Let's start with the build quality. It's a full metal construction and it's built like a tank. Unfortunately, it also weighs like a tank, close to 700 grams. And attached to my camera, I have to deal with a total weight of almost 1.5 kilograms. And this is no longer a comfortable level. It is really heavy. Of course, I understand that having only one arm at my disposal doesn't make it easy to test manual focus lenses, and this is one of the reasons why most of the time I had it attached to a tripod. We get a stepless aperture ring, and I personally prefer an aperture ring with a clicking sound just to avoid to change the aperture by accident. So we get f2.8 all the way to f22. Naturally, after f16 everything becomes a little bit softer, so I would not necessarily recommend using it at this f-stop. So when it comes to focusing, we have a very large focus ring and it goes smooth, but it has a lot of resistance and I think it's a little bit too stiff for my taste. Also, this is what you get. It's a shower, not a grower, so the focusing is completely internal. And when we're shifting the focus, you can hear internally a grinding noise. This is something I don't like very much. I don't know if it has any effect or if it does anything, but I'm not a fan of that. Moving the focus all the way from the back to the 2x magnification to the front takes a lot of turning, and having such a long travel distance for the focus and also such a strong resistance doesn't make it very easy. So it's actually easier to overshoot on your target a little bit and to go back and forth before you have the real perfect focus. I would say what I found most easy was trying to move the camera back and forth, and as soon as I had it in focus, to take the picture. That was a bit easier than the other way around, especially when it comes to moving subjects like insects or anything that was moved by wind. That was quite tricky. The minimum focusing distance front to subject is only 2 inches. With f2.8 we have a really shallow depth of field. Let me show you real quick how shallow it is. So I photographed this leaf and you can see now which portion of the leaf is sharp. Now, it is very easy as long as you're facing your subject completely. Well, then everything will be sharp, everything will be in focus. But as soon as you angle it, then you get only a fraction of your subject in focus. In terms of sharpness, it is acceptable at f2.8. It is definitely not at its best. And the corners are also pretty soft. I don't mind about the corners because that's not what this lens is about. As soon as we're stopping it down to f4 to f5.6, the sharpness gets so much better. And I actually prefer the shallow depth of field that we're accomplishing with an f5.6 in combination with this fantastic sharpness. So that was my personal preference when using this lens. The image quality and what you get is pretty impressive when we don't have to deal with moving subjects. So here are just a couple of examples. What also impressed me was that we don't have any distortions. This is as clean as it gets. Also, vignetting was not a problem, and when I tested this lens for CAs, I was also pleasantly surprised. So now, challenge number 2. You may remember Katja from my 35mm comparison. She's a nail artist and I visited her in her studio and I wanted to take a close-up film how she is making the nails from one of her clients. The problem was that Katja has such a workflow and she was not aware how much of a shallow depth of field this lens produces. So it was tough for me to follow her or to get things in focus. But what I got in focus looked really nice. So here I'm meeting with Sergey and Lara, and yes, she has the looks of a model and I try to capture that, but quite honestly, this is a macro lens. Focusing real subjects is not really easy, and the images I got, well, they may be okay for Facebook or Instagram, but they were really not great. So unfortunately, it didn't pass that test. It is a macro lens, a very good macro lens, but just a macro lens. I would not recommend using this lens for anything else but macro. As you can see, Lara was a really good sports, and I tried to take a picture of her eye. Like I told you before, as soon as you have even little bit moving subjects, focusing becomes a challenge with this lens because of its shallow depth of field. Here's a good example. I tried to take a picture of this screw, and you can see how little we get in focus at f2.8. And here's a picture at f4 and here at f5.6. What a difference, right? Now take a look at the bokeh. Even at f5.6, I like the bokeh. I think it's good what we are getting, and I would highly recommend using this lens rather at a higher aperture than f2.8. So to conclude my video, what do I think of the Brightin Star 60mm f2.8? Well, if you are interested in macro photography, or if you need really cool B-roll footage to add into your productions, then I think the Brightin Star 60mm f2.8 is a good performer. I think it's so much easier to use this lens with non-moving subjects. If you get something in focus, it is pretty astonishing and amazing what you can see. It used to retail around $300. Now you can pick it up anywhere for so much less. And this is how it should be, because the previous model, the Mark I, retailed around $200. This concludes my video, and YouTube thinks that you should watch this one here next. Thanks so much for watching this. Till the next time, stay safe, stay tuned, and take care. Bye for now.